Dave, you got to turn the microphone on, buddy. Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. Uh, Today is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. And, yeah, I'm, in deep. I'm in deep right now recording the, final video for the ESP32 sampler. Very excited to be almost finished. I did find some technical issues, um, and it was my mistake with the MIDI through circuit. Um, so that might be something that I'll tackle in like a live stream one day. But I'm not going to let it slow the process of finishing that project because I think everybody is kind of done with it, including me. So anyway, um, yeah. So we're here. Hey, Brian, what's up? Hey, Ed, what's up? So anyway, um, what are we gonna do today? What else am I doing? What else? Actually, before we do that, let's just what else is going on? Well, I've got this SP 1200 thing going on today, so that's good. Um, and gonna do a beat making live stream tomorrow night. Just gonna mess around a bit, I think. Um, what else? I guess I could tell everybody, but you'll be happy to know that PCB Way is actually um, they helped out with the final build of that SK1 sampler. They helped me out, so there's gonna be a little slot in the new video where I thank them for their help, and I do a little blurb about the ordering process. So yeah, so hopefully they continue to help out the channel and hopefully help us out when we're doing the SK1 or the SP1200 sampler, which would be really cool. Fingers crossed. Um, yeah, so that's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting for just a small little gear making channel. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it's really cool. Really cool. Um, Sorry, I'm all over the place right now because I was literally filming. Um, I was literally filming before I started this live stream. I actually have a bunch of stuff set up in front of me, including the sampler. Um, so yeah, and I've got my function generator hooked up, and we're doing line in sampling. There's a whole spiel. There's a whole spiel that I'll go through in the video, but anyway, so yeah, I'm just a little all over the place. I'm trying to center my focus now. But yeah, the basement. I'm sure you guys saw the last video. Um, uh, the framing is done, which is awesome. And now I had a lead on some free stuff to cover the walls, but that seems to have fallen through, which kind of sucks. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go to see my dad again this weekend, and he's got some cabinets for me, which is great. And also, my wife is redoing a closet upstairs, so I'm taking the built-in closet stuff, which is like a shelf and some cabinets, and I'm gonna hang all that stuff first before I finish the wall covering. Um, so yeah, I think it should be better, so then I don't have to do as much drywalling. If it was like an actual room that it was like supposed to be like a room somebody was going to live in, I would consider drywalling first and then putting up the cabinets. But since it's just like a workshop kind of thing, I'm not really that concerned about it. So yeah, I'm just gonna hopefully the next video, which depending on when I get the SK1 video done, will likely not be until the fall, not this weekend, but the following weekend, because as I mentioned in my YouTube post, um, yeah, um, I've got some family. Yeah, I've got a lot of, yeah, thanks, Ed. Thanks, man. Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of good stuff, a lot of cool stuff going on. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I find it cool too, you know? Um, so yeah, we're getting stuff done. And then hopefully the SK1 video, or yeah, the SK1, ESP32 SK1 video comes out Wednesday. So that's the hope and the plan. Um, so yeah, lots going on. And my head is just running a mile a minute lately. So anyway, let's dive into some SP1200 stuff because I did do a little research and I did some. I said that I was going to start a like a what do you call it, a document, and I haven't got to that yet, but we're getting there. But I did dive in a bit to the schematics as I mentioned before, and you can't see me, can you? Uh, Hold on a second here. I want to make sure that y'all can see me as I chat because, you know, it's nice to. I'm just going to put myself off in the corner here. Or you can see me, but you can't see the schematics. So I'm just going to pull this up. Let's just see how that looks. Let me just give it a second to get ahead and make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing here. And you can see me chatting. I just need it to catch up for a moment. I think it's looking okay. Yep, okay. So, as I said, I did some digging on these schematics. It's actually very interesting how they've accomplished what they accomplished in this sampler. Awesome, thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, and so like I said, you know let me dive in because I'm just gonna ramble otherwise, and nobody wants to hear me ramble. Um, so one of the things that I guess one before I go forward, I need to preface this by saying that from the research that I've done in the for the SP1200 is that one of the DACs is responsible for the overall sound of the sampler. Now, that's likely due to the fact of the type of digital to audio converter it is, which I think Brian mentioned last time that it's an R to R DAC. So, and as I was saying in the last, let me just, as I was saying in the last live stream, that I'm concerned about, I'm really concerned about it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely super impressive. But yeah, I was, you know, I'm concerned. The concern that I have right now is that, you know, in doing this build, it's important, I think, that we capture the character of not only the sort of like the workflow, but the sound is so important to this build. So, you know, I think it might be, you know, as irritating as it is, I think it might be smart to fully consider the original DAC that they used for this build. Um, as I said, because There are actually two DACs in this um, in this schematic. The 7541, which is doing all the audio processing. So that's sort of like where we're getting a lot of the sound from, right? And then we've got another one, the 7523, which, as far as I can deduce, is one that's being used to control the volume of each channel. So one's responsible for the sound output part, and one is responsible for setting the volume. And because what they're able to do, right, is you're able to like create a sequence and recall all your settings, right? So how they achieve that is the 12-bit DAC, the 7541 is doing just the sound output, and the 7523 is what is actually setting your velocity levels and stuff. So that's something that we might be able to get around. We might be able to get around that. Um, uh, in another way. So we might only have to invest our time and our energy into the audio processing part of it. And there's also the option that we could also do um, like a fully analog kind of like volume and output circuit. Um, so that's something that I'm thinking about as well. But yeah, I think, I think it's going to be, I think it would be wise. That's what my gut's telling me, to go with the sound generating part of it. Now, the last time that we were looking at DigiKey, I believe the 7541, it was like a $25 or $40 chip. I think it was a $40 chip, which is expensive, which is super expensive. But I believe um, I found a different package that's a little bit cheaper. DigiKey, just give me one sec. 7541 DAC. And I believe it was 20 bucks Canadian. That's Canadian dollars. So anybody who's from the States, you're going to get in on the deal. Yeah, this guy here, 26 bucks. 26 bucks for the DAC. And then we could also, if we want to do the 8-bit DAC for setting for velocity and stuff, if we end up going that route, we could use like a generic 8-bit DAC. And the other cool thing about this particular package that we're looking at right here is that it's just a standard 18-pin DIP, which will be super easy for us to breadboard um, and just work with in general. Like then when we make the PCB, we can just get a nice little DIP socket, call it a day, easy peasy. So, a little bit on the pricey side, yeah, but, it's got all those independent channels and yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the right thing for me, the right thing to do. Um, I know it might be a bit on the steep side, but, I don't know. Just feeling like the right thing to do in terms of like that audio processing part of it. And the other thing that I was thinking about is there's two routes that we can go with this in terms of designing the sort of like the front panel stuff. And it's stuff that I'm still like mulling over. Um, but before I get to that, what does everybody think about sort of that kind of financial investment into one part? Does anybody have any specific issues? Um, do you think it's too expensive? Because like, I just, to get that amount of channels um, out of a more modern DAC, um, you know, I'm not sure how we're going to do that otherwise. Does anybody else have any suggestions? Um, yeah. I'll wait for everybody to kind of make a comment if they have any comments about that. Sorry, I'm really all over the place today. Um, I'm just very distracted, so I'm doing my best to get all this stuff out. But I can pull up the data sheet while everybody's kind of thinking about it, and just take a quick look. It's 12-bit resolution. Ed says, not too bad, considering most of the other things will be relatively inexpensive, depending where you get them. Yeah, agreed. 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 Um, yeah. And I mean, I guess if you look at the prices of like the reissue and you look at the prices of other stuff, um, we're still well within, you know, we're still, if we can keep the build pretty cheap, um, on some of the other stuff, you know, yeah, I think $26. Yeah, it's steep. I guess my concern is if people are building along with me, you know, these chips are so sensitive sometimes in how they're handled. It concerns me a little bit that somebody would have to spend if somebody accidentally fried a chip, um, that they would have to replace it. That's the one part of it that has me a bit, I don't know. It just like, yeah, it just concerns me a little bit. You know what I mean? But I mean, it seems like it's got so many, it's 12-bit input, it's got a couple of outputs, like it's seems great. Hmm. Yeah, I'd be down personally. And you said like an OLED for the display as a sort of update to the 1200. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think we can probably really um, pare down the I/O part of it. Um, I'm sitting in front of the SP1200 right now, or not the SP1200. I'm sitting in front of the SP404 right now, and you know, there's a big chunk of this that is, you know, all just sort of diving with the rotary encoder. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like we can really pare down the I/O part of it because 40 buttons is insane. 40 buttons is insane, you know? My thought is like you sort of do like a couple shortcut buttons and you have a shift button and you can access all these like separate functions, right? With a rotary encoder and some menu design. That's kind of my idea. Um, because otherwise we're doing what we'd be doing something similar to the SP1200, how it's actually built. And what they do is they've actually, let me pull up the schematic again. They've actually got a separate um, microcontroller for just the I/O, for the front panel stuff. Um, Let me see if I can just find it here. Um, yeah, the this stuff. So what it is the Z80. From what I deduce, is like there's separate parts. There's separate modules Yeah, that's the cool thing of the 404, which sure is menu diving, but saving on inputs if one were to DIY it. Yeah, exactly, Ed. Exactly. But as I was saying, like what it looks like what they're doing with the Z80 is that there's separate modules. There's like a main kind of like CPU. Then there's another chip that does some communication over serial, and then there's the counter and clock stuff. So there's that's on a separate module as well. And all of this communication, as far as I can tell, is sort of done over serial communication. So uh, so yeah, that's how they're able to manage all this I/O. And do I really want to be getting into like a separate microcontroller for all the I/O part of it? I don't know. That seems like a lot. You know what I mean? Like when we could really just like pare it down to a rotary encoder and a button, or and a sorry, a rotary encoder and a menu, right? Uh, it also says, then again, the SP1200 has the function using the numpad with switches at the top. Yeah, yeah. Well, my thought was is that we could probably, with some clever kind of planning, I think we could do a combination, right? Where we have maybe like four like function buttons that could get us to maybe different menu selections. I don't know. We're gonna have to really. I'm gonna have to really like lay it out. Um, but some sort of combination of like the SP404, where you have sort of this combination of these buttons and then um, the rotary encoder. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because otherwise, I think the yeah, it's just too much I/O. It's just too much I/O to handle to do this. Because like yeah. Otherwise, like I'm looking at. I had a moment where I was looking through other microcontrollers that we could use, um, as like the front end of the I/O part of it, and that just is like it's just it's just too much. I think it's just too much coding. And I mean, at the same time, there's something to be said for that, having a separate microcontroller for the I/O, because then, you know, uh, you can really troubleshoot stuff section by section, right? So this is stuff that I'm floating around in my head. Um, but having a separate microcontroller for all that stuff is just seems like it seems like overkill to me, but I mean, we can buy them really cheap, right? If we had like a couple S3s, one sort of like handling the I/O part of it, and one handling sort of like the main audio processing part of it. I mean, that's a possibility, and I mean, you can get them so cheap on Temu and AliExpress and stuff. I don't know. Something to consider. Um, just thinking out loud here. Thinking out loud. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Um, at a fork in the road in terms of what we're gonna do. Um, yeah, 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 exactly. So there's, yeah. I mean, we don't have to decide right now, obviously. Um, but there is something to be said for that, right? Because then we could really divide up the project. Um, just thinking. the benefit of the benefit of having multiple microcontrollers in the project. Uh, I don't think the I/O would be too difficult. There's a few ways to get all the buttons and sliders. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess yeah, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. I guess the problem is, right, is that if we is that it's all those independent outputs too, right? Those all those independent audio outputs because it's got it output per pad. Let me find it. That's why it might make sense to have a dedicated. I don't know if there's a DAC out there that exists, or if there's like an SPI or I squared S um, module out there that would take um, that would be able to do that communication over a very few amount of I/O pins and spit out all those individual outputs. Um, because here's all the individual outputs here. So these are all the separate channels. So it has an output per pad. So there's 8 pads, right? And each output has its own, or sorry, each channel or each pad has its own dedicated output, and it also goes through that mono output as well. So, yeah, that's something I need to look into. That's something that we need to look into because, yeah, I think we need to see if there's like a decent, see what our options are. Because there's like a ton of outputs on here, right? So let's just go to DigiKey for a second. Let's go digital to audio converters. Let's see. Number of bits. Let's just leave that as for right now. Digital to audio converters. Number of digital to audio converters. So if we have the 8 pads, right? So we have 8 pads, each individual output. So we need at least 8. But then we have um, that mono output, which could probably, I think it could double as a stereo output, right? So we need 2 for that, right? Because we have, so 10, and then we probably want like a headphone jack as well, right? So we're looking at 14, and the number here we got 12 or 16. So let's look at 12 and 16. Because I guess we could also hijack, if we did 12, or 10, sorry, God, my head today is just, I'm everywhere. If we did 10, if we did 10, we could also hijack that stereo output, um, and do some like, uh, what are you doing? Um, and do some external stuff to do some op amping for the headphone jack. God, my brain is just not working today. Okay, let's take a look. There's 27 available. Okay. So we got 8-bit, 10-bit. Hmm. I want to avoid packages like this. Um, they're definitely cheaper. They're definitely a lot cheaper. It looks like that amount of channels, the most we're going to get, at least from DigiKey, is about 8-bit. Oh, here's 24-bit. Zero in stock, though. Let's narrow it down to what's in stock. I'm using DigiKey because they have really fast shipping, so that's why I'm using DigiKey. We can definitely take a look at like Mouser and stuff. But yeah, I always go to DigiKey because it's fast. Oh, here's one, 24-bit. That'll be a pain to solder. It's 25 bucks. Let's see what this guy's about. Or 21 bucks. I guess we could use multiples too. Here's 10-bit. One sec, let me just take a look. Here's another 24-bit one, only four in stock though. We would like something that has enough in stock, right? What's it? Let's see this one. Let's look at this guy. So here's 24, 24-bit, 12 digital to audio converters, data interface, I squared C, I2S, and SPI. Oh, that's nice. High performance, 12 channel, 192. This looks nice. Digital audio input. And here's all the individual outputs. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Digital filter and video volume control. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Huh. Yeah, right? It's just going to be a pain to solder and work with on a breadboard. I guess we would have to figure out some kind of like breakout board so that everybody could do that. Unless they make a breakout board for this, um, it's definitely possible that it exists if it's a popular enough module. Let's see. What's this guy? Oh, this isn't quite the same thing. What's this? Hmm. Evaluation board. Oh, I think this is like a whole development environment. We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want to be doing this. We just want. Hmm. Let's see what the circuit's like. Okay. Well, the one thing that, hmm, yeah, that's something. This is something to think about. Hmm. Well, hmm, yeah, we'll have to think about this because this looks pretty good. This chip looks pretty good. I just don't love the package, but just because it might be hard to work with. But that seems pretty good. It's 3.3 volts. It's going to play well with the S3 if that's what we go with. Hmm. 24-bit. Here's another 24-bit one. It's basically the same thing, just a different revision of it. What's this guy? Here's our let's see what else there is. If there's one in a more pleasurable package here. I don't know what it means when it's in. Oh, I guess the marketplace is like third-party vendors. Here's an 8-bit, 12 channels. What's the communication on this guy? Let's take a look. Might be. Let's take a look here. So it's chip select, SDI, a clock, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it might sound okay. Hmm. This is. What's the operating voltage on this guy? Power, so single 3 to 5 volts again, so that's good. Um, it's 8-bit, but I mean, that might be okay. It would definitely be easier to work with. I mean, I guess we could always use multiple. I worry about doing. I was just thinking. I guess we could do. You could divide it over two DACs with like least like smaller channel count, but I worry about like timing, keeping timing tight. Uh, let's go back. So let's do at least. Uh, so let's do 10. Oh, there's only 4. Maybe we'll go higher. Here's 4. Okay. Or 10. 10 bit. 10 bit. Okay, well let's go back again. Let's go 12-bit as our sort of our minimum. And let's try 16. Let's overshoot a bit and see what it gives us. Uh okay, a lot of these packages which could be a real pain to work with too. 34. That's not a lot. Let's go back to in stock. 19 in stock. Hmm. Yeah, we're definitely not using those. I don't want to use that package, this style package, if we can help it. Let's see what this guy's $76. No, thank you. Let's go to Mouser, see what they got. Uh, DAC. Let's see what these guys got. Here we go. And then what do we want? They give you a lot of different choices here. Oh, we can do through hole. which is kind of nice. As I said, it would be nice to do that for being able to breadboard some of this stuff, right? Let's go 12-bit, 16-bit, and in stock. We got one, $38. Oi, what about just 12-bit? Why? Lots more. Let's see. How many channels do we want? Let's go over. Let's do 16. Okay. Yeah. Um yeah, this guy again. 10 in stock. $71. Ay caramba. Man, it's just way more than I want to spend. This is $40. Hmm. Or a standard through-hole PCB if it were not able to go for a properly designed final PCB. Yeah. Hmm. Also, I was looking into um yeah. Okay. You know what? I think this is going to require some more deep diving, but for the time being, let's make a little bit of a list here. I'll get that list going. Let's go pages. Let's we'll do it here. New document. Let's start making a list. Let's start thinking about stuff. So, SP1200, um, build, um, documentation, right? So, what is our let's start like a bit of a list here. So, what do we know? We want 8 pads for samples, right? Or 8 slots for samples, I guess. Or just 8 buttons. 8 buttons to trigger samples, right? What else do we want? We want an OLED screen. We said that, right? OLED screen. We need a rotary encoder, right? For menu design, right? I think I'm okay with I think I'm okay with taking some of that menu stuff that's on the front panel of the SP1200 and making it just like a straight up menu, right? like in a rotary encoder style kind of build. Um, I think that's like a logical way to update it. I think having a little slightly updated I like workflow on it is okay, right? Okay. Now we want we need some buttons and some sort of navigation buttons, right? Um, so we'll say shortcut. We'll call them shortcut slash navigation buttons. I think it would be smart. You know how the new NPCs are, where they have um, specific buttons, and even the SP404 Mark II, they have like specific buttons that you can press that get you to like recording, get you to maybe editing your sequence or whatever. I think that would be a smart thing to have. Um, it would still take up some IO, but I think it would be wise to kind of do that um, to make it easier to hop around and do stuff, right? It's one thing to have sort of like the system preferences of it as sort of like a menu diving rotary encoder kind of thing, but I think having some kind of shortcut buttons would be good. So let's do that, right? Or you know what? I'm going to call this pre-build documentation. This is sort of like pre-planning. We're planning, right? Okay. And then we need sliders, right? We need 8 sliders or faders or whatever, or vertical potentiometers or whatever you want to call them. 8 sliders for pitch, pitch adjustment, right? Pitch adjustment. Yeah, good. 8 sliders for pitch, and probably volume. Probably volume as well, right? Pitch slash volume. Yeah, volume adjustment, right? Okay. And we need an SD card. SD card for saving sequences and samples, right? For saving and loading sequences and samples, right? Because we want to be able to sample stuff and then have it accessible in the future. We don't want it to be like the SK1 sampler, right? We don't want it to just go away when you reboot the machine. You want it to be, yeah, okay, right. Hmm. What else? We need. So let's call this sort of like user input. We'll call this user input section, right? It's kind of like the stuff that we're going to use to make music, right? Um, yeah, this is sort of stuff that we would be concerned if we were using it primarily in sort of like standalone mode, right? Now, we could call another section, let's call this next section communication, external communication, right? Now, we're not going to do the SIMPT stuff, I think. That doesn't make any sense to me. Um, none of us, at least as far as I know, none of us have like an external multi-track tape recorder or even an old school Pro Tools rig that would require SMPTE communication. So that to me is out. I don't need that. But we need MIDI in for sure. We need MIDI. I think MIDI out makes sense, especially if we're going to be using the this version of the SP1200 to like clock other gear, right? And we would like through, right? We want through because if we're using something else to clock the SP1200, we want to be able to have it go to other stuff, right? So that's important. That external communication stuff is important. I'm just going to make the font a little bit bigger so you guys can see what I'm writing here. Okay. USB, MIDI over USB, right? Makes sense to me. Because then we can clock it to a DAW, Ableton. Uh, we can clock it to Pro Tools, whatever. Right? Is there any other communication that we would want? Is there anything else? Maybe I'm thinking maybe just like if we're able to clock it with like just like a Eurorack system. So maybe a 5-volt clock. Does that make sense to everybody? Like a 5-volt in. So let's just for the sake of simplicity, let's call it a Eurorack clock in. Just so everybody has a good understanding of what I mean by a 5-volt clock. In/out, I think would be very useful. Right? Yeah, that makes sense to me. And all this stuff could be enabled, right, by the internal menu diving stuff that we want to do, right? The internal sort of like system preferences sort of situation, right? I think that makes sense. And then we need to talk about audio output, right? So we want audio output. Audio output, what do we want? We want well, you know what we need to do? Input and output because we're sampling, right? This is a sampler, right? So we want, I mean, the original SP1200 has a input, mono input, right? Now, to me, it wouldn't make much sense to have just mono, right? Yeah, here, let me just zoom down here. I think we want mono. I think if we can do like a combo jack, mono stereo input. I think having a stereo input makes a lot of sense. You know, I really do. Because then you can hook your record player directly to your 1200, right? Um, and it would, like I said, there would be an option that we could have a mono input as well. So if you wanted to run in like a monophonic synthesizer, sample that would be no problem too. I think that's a solid update, you know? Okay. And then we want a dedicated output for each channel, for each button, right? So we want a dedicated output per uh, Yeah, I think that the multifunction was for the output, though. I think for that mix out. Um, but we want dedicated output. Oh, you know what I just thought of though? Oh, this is something to think about though. Can you? And I don't know that. I don't know this for sure. Can you put a stereo pair? Can you put a stereo audio sample out a single DAC channel? Because otherwise, if we have a stereo sample at the input and we can only get it through the output of the mix out, it doesn't really make much sense because then we can't like we wouldn't be able to properly process any independent output that we would have, right? Unless there's like a way around that. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if you can do that without some like back end kind of like trickery. Mm, I don't know if you can do that. That's something we'll have to look into. Hmm. Maybe we'll put stereo in brackets because, as I said, I don't know what's possible there. I have to look into that. I have to look into that. So dedicated mono output per channel. I think the 8 dedicated audio outputs is going to be the most difficult part. I agree, Brian. I agree because no matter how you slice it, it requires a lot of I/O, doesn't it? Or it's either going to require a lot of I/O or it's going to be expensive. Let's just write this down because we can always adjust, right? We can always adjust. Um, dedicated output per dedicated output dedicated mono output per channel, right? And then we want a mono slash stereo mix output, right? And we also want a headphone jack. So, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. Not to mention the stuff that's on the software side. We're just looking at like we haven't even touched like on the sequencing part of it, right? Which is all going to be obviously internal, but it's still a huge undertaking. But I'm for a challenge. I like challenges. Hmm, it's a lot, eh? Sorry, let me move this over so you guys can see. Ed is saying, would 4 channels be too little? I got my parts I mentioned the other stream and worked out a super basic layout of 4 switches, 4 faders to miniaturize the SP1200, but that's an idea I was working out. Right. Right. Um, Let me think about that. Because the other option is, um, oh, we haven't even got to the specs of the specs, the recording specs, right? Let's just jot that down real quick. Let's just do recording slash playback specs that we're looking for, right? Let's just take a look. Let's use our friend Google here. We'll do, what do you call it? SP 1200 EMU. SP 1200 um, recording and playback specs. 12-bit. So we want is a 12-bit sampler. 12-bit sampler with 10 seconds of sample memory. Okay. So 12 bits, 10-second sample memory, 26 kilohertz sampling rate. I'm going to assume that this information is correct. 8 pads, 2.5 seconds per pad. 8 pads with 2.5 seconds, 2.5 second sample slots each. With but it's a total of 10 seconds, right? Right. Okay. Right. Totaling 32 sounds across 4 banks. Okay, well, we're not going to worry about that because I think we'll probably simplify that part of it. Um, okay. Yeah. I think that the multiple channel output is going to be the real issue, and I think Ed's onto something, kind of narrowing it, like slimming it down a bit. Um, hmm. I mean, we could also look at a different microcontroller. Um, that possibly has like more I/O. I guess what the next step is really is I need to spend some time this weekend and really dig into um, the DAC part of it and figure out the easiest way that we can do like a multi-channel output. Um, I think my personal opinion is that we can probably mimic the sound um, with maybe some bit reduction and sample reduction and things like that. I don't know. I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky. Hmm. Yeah. One thing, you know what we could do? Hear me out on this one. Hear me out on this one. What if we did a maybe Ed's onto something. And maybe, Brian, you can comment on this as well. Maybe what we do is, this is such a huge undertaking doing 8 channels for sure. It's a huge undertaking. Maybe what we do is we do a mini version of it first. So maybe along the lines of like what Ed's doing, where we have 4 buttons, we have 4 channels, we've got 4 independent outputs for those channels, we have a stereo output, we have a stereo input to sample. Um, but yeah, maybe we do that to start. Maybe we do like a mini version of this, a pared down mini version of this to start. Um, as sort of like a proof of concept. And then we jump to a larger build in the future. Because 8 just, it seems really overwhelming and very expensive. And yeah, something to think about. Something to think about. Hmm. Yeah, I'll take a look at that, Ed, when I'm done the stream here. And Brian says, I'll post some sample audio. Oh, awesome. That would be great. Yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely send that along, Brian, when you have a chance. And then Ed also said, I was thinking 16-bit 44.1, but saw the specs and thought, oh, that was overkill. Right. Well, maybe, as I said, maybe this is sort of like we do like a little mini version of this first, and we don't worry about things. We go with sort of cost effective solutions to make sort of like a 4 channel um, interface. You know what I mean? Like we try to make like a mini version of this first, and then we do like the full big boy version. Um, that might be the way to do it. That might be the way to do it. Because then it really gives us an opportunity to focus on hammering out like the clocking and the feel of it and try to get close to try to get close to kind of like what it sounds like um and really, getting a real grasp on how to balance multiple outputs. Um, hmm, yeah, food for thought. Food for thought, guys. Food for thought. Well, I think I need to get back to filming for the next video. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave it here, and I will post this little sheet um, at some point uh, in the future. Just save it here. I'll post it as like a PDF file so that everybody can view it. I know that not everybody uses Pages, um, so I'll do that at some point in the future so that we all have access to it. We can all take a look at it. Um, and yeah, but I think we're going to leave it here for today. I think we made some good progress. And yeah, we'll have to think about this. I think there's a lot to be said for doing like a little mini one to start, and then maybe doing like as I said, like a big boy version of it in the future. Um, yeah, just it's just really something to haul over, isn't it? Anyway, thanks again for everybody for coming out, and yeah, look forward to the SK1 ESP32 SK1 video. That should be coming out on Wednesday. Fingers crossed, assuming nothing blows up on me. And yeah, that's it. I think that's it. As I said, doing a live stream tomorrow night. Doing the making beats, making some beats. So if you're bored, it's Friday. Feel free to drop in. And yeah, probably won't get till yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, probably won't get till to the renovation video this week. Unfortunately, it's just too much going on, too much happening. So anyway, yeah, thank you. Everything is well. Hope everything is well with you guys as well, and hopefully you'll have a video of the SK1 next week. Yeah, lots to think about, Brian. Lots to think about. Um, and I'll definitely have some time this weekend to do a little bit more research in between my sort of family obligations, and hopefully we'll be able to reconvene on next Wednesday and get a real solid plan, hammered out for this thing, and we'll be able to, get everything start really gathering for September. So awesome, guys. Well, take it easy, and I will see y'all either tomorrow night, if you can make it, or if not, I'll see you next Wednesday, I guess, in the final video, and then we'll do our regular live stream this Thursday. Abnorm, you're late. Jeez. Yeesh. Yeah, awesome. Glad to hear that you're excited too. We're very excited. We're just working on some of the details, trying to figure out the best way to do this. And so definitely take a look at the rerun of this. And abnormally late. I like it. Yeah, rewatch it. Drop a comment if you got anything to say, if you got any thoughts about what we talked about today. Um, it was a bit disjointed. My brain is all over the place today, so hopefully it's not too painful to watch. So anyway, take it easy, guys. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you tomorrow night, and yeah, take it easy.